has been in the news recently for all the wrong reasons. The allegation is that some of the best brands are in fact packed with sugar. And this is being done by some of the biggest companies. It's cloak and dagger stuff with fructose syrup being imported from China and being of a kind that can escape detection in the normal tests that honey is put through. Why would this be happening? Is it just a bottom line issue? Or is it that the price of honey has become so low that to be competitive, people need to adulterate honey and not keep it as the pure edible honey that we look forward to? To understand more, we spoke to Raj Seelam, the chairman and founder of 24 Mantra, an organic food company. Now, Raj Seelam runs a mighty good company, which we track at Civil Society, and they produce wild honey, which has no fructose syrup or sugar in it. Apart from that, Raj also interacts with some 60,000 farmers, big and small, across the country. Because his company doesn't just sell honey, it sells a range of products from tea to wheat to rice to ready to cook traditional recipes. It's a very interesting company. So we thought, while talking to him about honey, we'd use the occasion to also quiz him a bit about the new farm laws and what the implications really are for companies like his and farmers whom he deals with. Today, I want to talk to you about the controversy over sugar in honey. And when you talk of the organic business, then you're talking of wholesome things, right? And we're talking of purity. And suddenly we seem to be in the middle of some kind of a cloak and dagger scenario of fructose syrup, which evades tests, being imported from China, and the customer being given lots of fructose syrup and equivalent of sugar instead of honey. So what exactly is going on? Why do companies want to put sugar in honey?
Yes, I think few of the things have been really revealing to me also. Like I think this non-detectable fructose special formulation. I knew adulteration was there, but I think this kind of sophisticated thing, it was a little bit news to me. I don't think any of the good companies, good brands would deliberately do this. But the way the supply chain is organized, it's prone to, I would say, a lot of mischief. Because if you look at the honey supply chain, you have two sorts of honey. One is which is wild honey, like during our course of our life, you would have seen some honeycombs on trees, and then someone cuts it, and then you kind of squeeze and then have honey. So that's what we call the typical wild collection. Obviously, for a large scale, it has to happen in forests or those kind of undisturbed areas. Then the second one is what we call the box honey, where you have honey boxes, and you have frames inside. There are typically 9 to 10 frames in a honey box. So that's the cultivated honey. Right. So today, I think I would say wild honey is very, very small percentage, given the consumption has hugely increased. It's very small percentage. My sense would be it'd be like 2-3% or whatever kind of thing, 2-3 or 4%. Balance is all farmed honey. And typically, if you look at honeybees, they forage, their primary food is pollen. And pollen happens only when plants are flowering. And obviously, no plant flowers 365 days in a year. If you have a small garden, you will say that they flower sometime, don't flower some other time. And they're voracious eaters.
Yeah.
So they need a lot of pollen. So obviously, so there's a seasonality to it.
Mm.
So there are two, three sources of contamination. So the way, as I said, first let me explain. So typically you have, in case of wild honey, you have wild collectors. So this could be tribals or local people who reside in the forest or close to the forest, to climb trees and then do this. And then they extract honey, and then that's one set. And in case of farmed honey, which is called apiaries, so you have boxes. So there are beekeepers, and each one either let's say I'm a trader or whatever. I will have some boxes I'll give to some people, or there could be farmers, honey farmers who are doing this. So what they do is, wherever I think they have flowering crops, so they take these boxes and keep it there. So these boxes already have honeybees. They keep it there, and then the honeybees forage around that area. One of the biggest sources of honey is mustard,
Okay.
sarso, what we call. Because I think this is over huge swaths in particularly North India during winter, and this is one of the most productive seasons. So these people, they take hundreds of bees and each of them, and then keep it in the mustard fields, and the honey bees collect this pollen, and then they create honey in the boxes.
Mhm.
So and then so these beekeepers, what they do is they extract honey, and then they give it to the agent, because you need collection centers, right? This is spread across, and these are very mobile, particularly the boxes, the farmed honey apiaries. They're mobile. So you give it to the trader, and the trader could be giving directly to a company, or it could be given to a larger trader, who in turn supplies to companies.
Mhm.
So one contamination is people mixing fructose or these kind of syrups or jaggery or sugar solutions deliberately
Mhm.
to kind of make more profit. So
Mhm.
it could happen at the beekeeper level, it could happen at the collection agent level, or it could happen the vendor who is finally consolidating and supplying.
Mhm.
So that's one source of contamination. The second source of contamination, particularly in this boxed honey or the farmed honey,
Farmed honey.
uh, is because the bees need pollen, and you can't have, however much you are mobile, you can't have crops 365 days of the year. So
Mhm.
there'll be typically summer months will be lean periods. So where there won't be anything for the honeybees to feed, and these bees have to be fed. So typically that's when they either give sugar solution, or today fructose solution is cheaper. So they feed the honeybees, because
So
otherwise honeybees die.
that's fed to the honeybee. That's fed to the honey.
That's fed to the honeybees to keep them alive, because they need something to eat, right?
Mhm. And are these
Otherwise,
are these all Indian bees? These are all Indian bees, or do you have imported bees? Or
typically, what happens is there are three types. So one, okay, let me say. So this is one source of contamination. So
Mhm.
obviously that was also passed off as honey
Mhm.
a lot of times. So you are giving sugar, and it is giving sugar honey or whatever. Primarily, it's again giving back sugar,
Mhm.
the bees.
Okay.
So that is a second source of contamination. So
Mhm.
typically, when you come to bees, you have three kinds of bees. One is what we call Apis rana indica. There are two native bees. One is Apis indica rana, Apis rana indica. Then the other one is what is called Apis dorsata. So these are the native bees. They are more rugged. They are more this thing. Their productivity is also a little lesser. So typically, when you do farming in these boxes, they
Mhm.
use this European bees, Italian bees they called Apis melliflora.
Mhm.
So the productivity of mellifera is much higher, but
Mhm.
they are also like anything which is delicate, much more susceptible to diseases.
Okay.
That's where I think to keep them alive, because one of the biggest costs for beekeepers is maintaining the colony.
Mm.
Because if the bees die, then his productivity is so he is out of business, right?
So when you talk of Italian bees, now these are bees brought down from Italy, or they're bred here, or what is it?
Yeah, they've been imported from Europe, and then
Uh-huh.
now I think for many years, and then they are
Mhm.
come. So today I think the dominant is Apis melliflora, which is the European bee, because as I said, 95% plus is the farmed honey,
Mhm.
the boxes honey, and there it's invariably only the Apis melliflora, the European honeybee.
It's truly
So they
productive.
also use a lot of antibiotics.
Mm. Sorry?
Uh, so in this Apis melliflora, the
Yeah.
boxed
Yeah.
honey boxes, to keep them away from being sick, they use
Okay.
antibiotics. So
Okay.
that's how antibiotic residues come into honey.
Hmm. Mm.
Otherwise, there are a lot of honeybees can die, and to that extent, it will mean large losses for the beekeeper.
Now, all this could not be happening, Raj, without companies knowing that it's happening. So,
Correct.
would I be?
I'm saying it's not that people don't know. I'm sure companies know about it. The only
Uh-huh.
thing I'm saying, they may not be deliberately adding, at least the good brands, okay,
Okay.
or good brands or popular brands. Whether good is a different thing, but popular brands may not add on their own. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they're aware, because today the honey prices at farm level have come down to 80 rupees, and at 80 rupees you can't deliver genuine honey.
Hmm. So, what does that mean when you say 80 rupees? 80 rupees for what?
For a kg of honey.
Mm. Okay.
That is the conventional farmed honey. That is the
Hmm.
cost today, 80, 90 rupees.
Well, now, why is that? Is honey a price sensitive thing? People don't want to buy
So
honey
I
if it's
think what
expensive?
happens is in the chain, someone would have started adulterating, so he's able to offer a lower price.
Ah, okay.
So then the other guy sees, boss, my price is higher. How do I compete? So I also mix. So over a period of time, the whole damn thing has become contaminated.
Ah. You
So I
know,
think third, the source of contamination is primarily your pesticides. It's not that pesticides are fed to the honeybees, but they forage on these crops where pesticides are sprayed, and then automatically the the pesticide also falls on the pollen, and when the honeybees eat the pollen, the residues come into honey. So this is the three, I would say, major sources of contamination. The last two are still not got adequate attention. Today, I think the major attention is about adulteration with fructose syrup and other
fructose
things.
syrup and so on. Has the consumption of honey been rising? Has it been
Yes,
increasing?
honey has been increasing because definitely it is a much better sweetener compared to sugar. So obviously, if you look at it, honey is good. The next followed by jaggery, and last is your typical white sugar.
So the honey market has been increasing by what? 10%, 5%, 20%?
Frankly, I think I don't have the figures because I've not
Okay.
been tracking, but it's been growing rapidly.
Okay. So if we have this fructose problem, like most things in our lives, it is driven by the quarterly bottom line. Everybody needs to cash in. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what does 24 mantra do when you go for wild honey, right? And mm, you're quite happy to do a small turnover. How do you ensure quality? And how do you assure your customers of quality?
So wild honey is typically we do in forests. So currently, I think we have two sources. One is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh border along the Chambal River Valley.
Mhm.
That is one source, and second is we do in Uttarakhand primarily the Himalayan honey. So these are the two sources where we collect our wild honey. So obviously these bees are Apis dorsata. So these are typically like there's no cultivation there. The honey colonies get naturally formed, and then we have this local people or tribals going and collecting it seasonally. So typically there are two major seasons for wild honey. One is, I think, let's say after the rains, September to November kind of thing is one season. Then the second season is February to March. So typically these are two seasons. So for us, what is important is also that honey is sustainably done. Because a lot of times what happens is people just go and cut the comb and then crush it. So typically in a wild honey, what happens is they take out the comb, then they crush it with a muslin cloth, squeeze it, and the honey comes out. So if you are not careful, if people cut the entire honeycomb, it will also kill a lot of larvae and small honeybees which are developing. So then one is it's not good, and second it is not sustainable. So what we do is for us it's very important that the honey is also sustainably collected. So in our case, what happens is we work with these people so that they just cut only the comb where the honey is there and balance is left out. So that means the honeycomb will again regrow. So typically the collection during these periods happens at a 20 to 25 days interval. In 20 to 25 days, again honey forms. So this is just people climb these trees, whatever, and then
and who for 24 mantra, who connects with the community? How do you do this? Because I'm sure that's a very
we have still not gone to, let's say, directly collecting ourselves because the supply chain is very complex. We work with 2 or 3 vendors and we do our periodic audits every season kind of thing to make sure that they're following the one is sustainable practices and then there's absolutely no contamination. So this is how we do. And in fact, in our kind of wild honey, the pollen count is very high. If you look at FSSAI standards, the pollen minimum count is 1,000. In our case, the count will be like 1 lakh plus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So actually, more pollen is better because otherwise, then what are you getting? You're also getting honey is also fructose.
So no fructose in 24 mantra honey. I can keep buying it and having it like I always do.
Absolutely. You can 100%.
It's the only honey I have. You'll find bottles plenty, few feet from where I'm sitting right now. But has the profile of the consumer, the organic foods consumer, organic product consumer, been changing?
Yes, I think a lot of times, I think even when we started, of course, our objective was to bring organic food from the drawing room to the dining table so that it gets mainstream. And when we started our first store in Hyderabad, we kept in Banjara Hills, which is one of the rich areas, etc., thinking that perhaps only these people will buy. We are not sure. But then we were pleasantly surprised that there will be a lot of people coming on old scooters, coming 20 kilometers away and happily buying, but someone coming in a Mercedes saying that why this 1 rupee more kind of thing. So, and then we have a lot of instances where I think a taxi driver, a auto driver, they buy organic products. May not be everything, but a few things. And so finally it is, so it's not so much about money, but it is more about, I would say, certain consciousness and also an attitude towards eating health, right food, etc. So that's why I think initially we were in major cities. Then without any effort, we were actually able to get into about now 240 or 250 towns and cities. And then we seem to be doing well without too much effort. That's because primarily I think people want good food.
Yeah, and they're ready to pay a little extra. You know, typically
once they are convinced, see, I think the biggest question even there is also, is it genuine? And once they are convinced about genuinity, cost is not such a major factor.
But even the price difference, let's say the higher cost that you're paying for an organic product, it's not like you're paying double, is it?
Yes. It's about 40% more, but in rupee terms, it translates into about 1,500, 2,000 rupees for a family of 4 in a month.
Yeah. So
if you buy the entire basket, if it is a few products, obviously it will be much lesser.
Much less. So it doesn't really make such a difference in a family's budget, or it can if it's a very tight budget. But if there's some space in it, people might buy what they like to buy for the sake of quality and so on.
Always keep saying that there's a cost of going to a movie in a multiplex.
Yeah, that's true. Now, you know, from what I know, and what I know is as two ways: as a consumer and as a journalist. As a consumer, I'm very happy with your products. And as a journalist, I keep asking around and so on and so forth. Uh, you have a very high retention level. You have a loyalty to 24 mantra, which is quite extraordinary. Now, do you have to work very hard for that beyond just putting out a good product? What is there anything else that you need to do?
I think one is, I think each product, whether it is a wheat, rice, or a masoor dal or a tur dal, every product is unique. So that's been my discovery in this 16 years. Every product is unique. Every product is very nuanced. So there are a lot of small things, and unless you learn about it and then on a daily basis take care of that, things can just go off track. And particularly in a country like India, where the farms are small, farmers are small, uh, if you take your eyes off, then things can just quickly collapse. So one thing is being on our toes always. Uh, uh, Not that people would deliberately cheat, but I think people want to be guided, because ultimately a small farmer, 2 acres, 3 acres, if there is a pest, if there is no advice, immediate advice, then he will do whatever he has to save to make his livelihood. So that's where I think we have to be always there for these farmers, constantly monitoring the entire supply chain and seeing how we can make these basic products also better and better. So every time we keep learning. So even after 15 years, even for the basic products, we still keep learning. And
Do,
that's
do your
the one part of it. Yeah.
do your customers ply you with a lot of feedback? Do you manage to get a lot of feedback out of your customers?
Yes, I think every day we have about 15, 20 emails or whatever coming to us minimum, not only in India, but across the world. Either people saying that, okay, this I didn't find good, or few people complimenting, or a lot of people actually asking us doubts, questions, whether it is about organic, whether it is about health. After seeing this, what we did is we started a what we call typically a knowledge center within the company, staffed by nutritionists. So they keep answering all these queries, both about health, nutrition, and also about organic. So our customers are very engaged, and even a small difference, then immediately we will come to know within no time at all. Like once, typically what happens is in dal, typically they polish. So when they polish, they use either mineral oil, and then they also add water to increase the weight, and then the color changes little bit because of that. So once I think by mistake, I think some water got added and the color changed. And I think within a week we got so many mails saying that there's something wrong with your dal, tur dal. So immediately we went back and checked, and then we knew that there's some mistake happened there.
Yeah. So, these are very special businesses to build, not easy to build. One is you're dealing with a fragile product, which, you can't douse it with pesticide, you can't do these things. You're dealing with a fragile source as well. And you're dealing with a customer who's fastidious, who wants to pay more but wants to get what they want, like the color of the dal has to be right. What have you had to do to build this organization? You built it bottom up. From the first brick upwards, you have built it. What have you had to do to make it different?
See, I think one is having a clear sense of mission. Then second is having a clear set of values. and being able to recruit the right people with the right attitude and then inculcate this both this mission and values in the people, because you can only do so much in terms of systems processes which we need to definitely have, but ultimately it is all those people in the field who make a difference. And if they are aligned to the mission values, that's the biggest asset you can have. In fact, there are also instances within the company where I think where when mistakes were made, even the junior most guy pointed out and said that there's a mistake here, we have to correct. So that is one thing I think which has really put us in good state. And second is in terms of doing small innovations on a daily basis. So whether it could be like how to treat grains to make sure that they're free of any insects, etc. To small things in processing so that it preserves the nutritional value, but at the same time becomes palatable, etc. So all these kind of things, or in terms of packaging, so that our shelf life is good enough. So one is the people culture, I would say, mission, culture, values, whatever. Second is this constant innovation. So there's no big R&D kind of thing, but this is on a daily basis going on, which accumulates into something substantial over a period of time. And third, I think being honest with ourselves. If things go wrong, accept that there's a mistake and then correct it and move on. It has happened with us in many cases. It's not that we have been perfect. Whether customers pointing out, or employees pointing out, or business partners pointing out. And in some cases, because of this, we have to incur huge loss. But I think we said that's fine, but we don't want to compromise on the values. Like we had one instance of basmati rice, which we sourced from our farmers' paddy, and then it got processed in a third-party unit. And for some reason, looks like it got contaminated with conventional paddy. And when we got to our packing center, we tested and we found residues. So the entire thing we have to write off.
How many people does 24 Mantra hire now? It's some years since you started. And
right now, I think we have a strength of about 500 people, plus or minus 5% kind of thing. So most of them are in the field. We have about almost 170, 180 people who work with farmers. Then,
so what are their backgrounds, Raj? What are their backgrounds? When they work with farmers.
People in the field are typically mostly we recruit from farming communities so that they understand agriculture, appreciate agriculture. Most of them could be graduates or plus 12, but most of them would be graduates. So that's the thing, and then we take them on board and then train them. Then we have people in operations. Operations people are more like technically qualified. Either they're food technologists or they're agri engineers or engineers kind of thing, engineering kind of background. So that's in operations. And then we have in sales and marketing because there are a lot of people who stand in the stores and communicate our story to this thing. So they're typically, again, plus 12 graduates, whatever. So we have 4-5 competencies. One is in terms of agriculture, people who are trained in agriculture. Second is food processing. Then obviously third is more like engineering skills for managing the plants, etc. And then others.
You yourself come from a farming family, right? If I'm not mistaken. And interestingly, you for a while you were selling pesticide, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right. So these transitions are all possible. Your family today is a different kind of farming family. It's an entrepreneurial family, and it's still in farming. That's so interesting, given what's happening right now in the country. Now, you work with some 60,000, some humongous number of farmers in the country in one way or the other. And most of them are small farmers. And they're not the big farmers. And what is it that you can tell us about the aspirations of the small farmer in India?
See, I think unfortunately for a lot of farmers, it's still a huge struggle to have roti, kapda, makan. So one is that basic struggle. Obviously, things have improved in the last 10, 15 years. One is not only with our farmers, but in general, because the productivity has a little bit gone up. Then second is prices are much better compared to what it was. Like I tell you, when we started off 15 years back, the price of urad would be about around 20 rupees. Today, the same thing is about 70 to 80 rupees. So obviously, things have become better. But I think apart from the basics, the aspiration is how do I give a good education to my children? So that's one important thing which comes across. That's a big aspiration. People uh, want their children to have social mobility primarily through education. And if you talk to the women, how do they improve the health of their family? So either better nutrition or not getting exposed to contaminated things. So I think I would say these are the major higher level aspirations apart from having, let's say, a refrigerator or a mixie. In fact, my village earlier, no one would know mixie, and the part where I come from, no one knew how to do idli dosa. But today in my village, every household has got a mixie, a refrigerator, and then all of them they say they do dosa and idli because dosa and idli is more the coastal Andhra and Tamil Nadu kind of thing, not so much in Telangana. But they say now they do every week dosa or idli in their families, otherwise the kids will protest. So I think a lot of those changes have happened. So one is the basic aspiration, second is social mobility through education primarily.
Now, the current debate is whether farmers are empowered enough to deal with companies. Now, I have Mr. Company sitting in front of me right now, and you're dealing all the time with farmers. What sense of responsibility does that place on you? Because let's face it, it's not one to one here. Now, you are much more empowered than the person you're doing business with. So
Absolutely.
how much responsibility does it place on you to deal with this farmer? And in the course of how much time does it take for a farmer to actually start understanding market mechanisms and to deal with companies like yours or others?
See, I think the cornerstone of any relationship is trust. So whether you have an agreement or not, that's not a major thing. But I think trust is one is honoring whatever promises you make. And second, as far as the farmer is concerned, being fair. Fair in terms of paying the right price. Second is making sure that he is not cheated in terms of weighing, etc. Or saying that, okay, your quality is poor and then that's why I'll pay you lower. So these are the three things. Like I think they're saying you can cheat some people all the time, all people sometimes, but not all people all times. And in case of farmer, if you do once, you're out.
Okay.
Right. So that way, I think it's not only about us, but anyone. If they have to deal with farmer, they have to be honest. Otherwise, there's no long-term play. You can do once and get away. And of course, people have done that. That's why I think a lot of times farmers are cautious about it. Um, so you have only one chance. And in that one chance, you make sure that you do the right things and the farmer is with you. And building this trust takes years. It doesn't happen overnight. So most of our projects we would have started with 10 farmers, 20 farmers. Today it's a few thousand farmers. And that's taken whatever 10 years, 15 years kind of thing. Because I think the farmer doesn't care about agreement. He cares about your word and making sure that you walk the talk.
Do you think the the current laws which seek to reform equations in the countryside at the farm level, open up markets for farmers and so on, do you think they bring too much too soon without adequate preparation for farmers to respond in this new equation?
So if you actually look at the laws, uh, I don't think nothing will change immediately. Because what the laws have said is one is the farmer has got now a choice.
Yeah.
Because earlier you have to only take to the mandi, sell to only a cartel kind of thing, a commission agency. It's a closed thing, right? And most of the time, the mandis, a lot of times it's not fair. Though they talk about the auction system doesn't work. So all they have given is a choice. It's not that suddenly there will be a lot of companies lining up overnight to buy this. It's going to take time. So it gives more choice, and no one can force a farmer to sell to someone. Today, what you are doing is you are forcing a farmer to only go to the mandi and sell. So you are given choice. So frankly, I think what I think is more choice means always a better deal for the farmer. In fact, if you look at southern states, about 60-70% of the procurement happens outside the mandi.
Yeah.
Unlike a Punjab, Haryana, who are primarily dependent on mandi. So I think that is one. And second, the farmer has never been part of any supply chain and has not seen the benefits of it. Primarily because of draconian laws like the Essential Commodities Act. So obviously, today I think for us, one of the biggest hurdles is we are growing, the farmers are growing this organic thing, and the farmer doesn't have the capacity to hold it for a long time. Few farmers have, or even if they do, they will hold some material, sell some material. So the Essential Commodity Act says that you can't store more than 100 tons, 200 tons, whatever. So for me, if I have to buy this because I need a few thousand tons of each commodity every year, and this is to be procured within 3 months. And so we buy this, but at the same time, because of this law, we are at the mercy of local officials. Anyone can come and say that you have violated the law and book again criminal case against me. So, okay, we have taken that risk and gone ahead because whatever we believe in and all that. But otherwise, no large company will do because of this. So, obviously, they don't invest. So, removing this, because this law was a era when there was severe shortages, hoarding was there. Today, I think that situation is not there. So that is a good thing which will free up companies in actually going out and procuring from farmers. And third thing is in terms of extension services, the government extension service, which primarily advises on the technical inputs to farmers, has completely collapsed. So this is where I think if companies enter this play, they can start giving technical advice. Like we do a lot of technical hand-holding for the farmers to improve their productivity, to improve the quality of the produce, because the quality of the produce is better, the price is better. So I think that second thing will happen. And third, infrastructure development will happen, because I think today the infrastructure, the farm gate infrastructure is very pathetic, leading to a lot of losses and inefficiencies. And that 1 lakh crore which the government announced, they seem to be serious. I had some chat with some senior bureaucrats, and then they've started actually working on it. Where I think people or farmer organizations, farmers or any small businessman can borrow 2 crores without collateral at a 3% interest subvention and then repay over 7 years. So we ourselves are thinking of partnering with a lot of local entrepreneurs to upgrade our farm gate infrastructure. Could also work with farmer groups. We'd be happy to do that. So net is it's a positive thing. Having said that, given that farming, most of the farmers are small, we also require a safety net. So MSP is one way of creating a safety net. Second is crop insurance. But frankly, as we go along in the long run, we have to find better ways of creating this safety net rather than MSP itself. It could always be one of the tools, but we need to increase this toolbox.
Yeah, because it's a dampener for a competitive market. You can't have an MSP and a competitive market, and so there's obvious contradiction.
And third is, I think today we are producing too much of rice and wheat. We don't require that. We can't sell internationally. People don't eat that much. So we have to diversify cropping. So we have to see how to incentivize farmers to grow multiple crops. Like today, about 70% oil is imported. So how do we incentivize farmers to grow more oil seeds?
So, would you say, would you say that one of the things that we desperately need, uh, we were once interviewing for our magazine some years ago, MS Swaminathan, and he was at that time in the Rajya Sabha, and we were interviewing him here. And he said, "Look, I have this report. It's been lying for so long. We need to open up markets. We need to do all these things, etc., etc., etc." And it's my report is gathering dust. And at that time, the Congress was in power, so that report gathered dust forever and ever. But he also said an interesting thing. He said, "See, when we did the Green Revolution, we had a sense of mission, a sense of purpose. We hit the fields. We went out to farmers. We worked with them, like as you are saying right now. All the extension services which don't work right now actually worked at a fever pitch at that time."
That's true. Yeah.
So, would you say that one of the things that you need along with such laws is, more imaginative regulation and more imaginative interaction with the farmer, which, does not seem to be there at all?
Absolutely, I agree this. So it should be communicated better, number one. And number two also is how do we kind of empower them to do many more things. I think that's another thing which is a little bit missing in this entire dialogue. So if that happens, definitely I think it'll be helpful. And like you said, the sense of mission for attaining food security, can we have that sense? How do we create that sense of mission in terms of creating a diversity of crops so that
That's right.
we are less import dependent, and then because of that, the farmers are their own, I'd say, incomes improve.
Financing farmers better. We're so bad at financing the small farmer. Right? The money never reaches them, or it's dull. But financing them in ways which empower them is something we could possibly explore. Raj, thank you very much. And I'm a great fan of yours, and 24 Mantras is perhaps the wrong guy to interview you, but I know, I really know what good stuff you do. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. We will connect again and keep reading Civil Society.
Thanks, Umesh. I think it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And whenever I talk to you, you're pushing me to do better and better, because there's a huge responsibility when I make these statements. I've already started thinking what else we should do.
Thanks, Raj.